Hello and welcome to my Week 11 college football predictions. There's a lot of good games this week and a lot of top 25 games this week, so let's get right into it. First off, we have the Friday night game, Colorado at USC. There's not much to be said here other than if USC wants to be recognized as a good team, they will dominate, especially it being at home. Last week against Cal, kind of made fun of USC more than Cal, honestly, even though Cal lost. USC kind of walked out of their own home field with their pants down, and if they really want to be recognized as a top 10 team, I think they need to beat the living shit out of Colorado, which should not be a hard task. So far, every team has dropped 35 plus points on this team, and USC's offense is perfectly capable of doing that. Now, I do have this score a little low, but I would not be surprised if Colorado put some points on USC because their defense kind of shit sometimes. Purdue at Illinois. Now, I have Illinois winning this one pretty closely, but I do kind of think that there may be a little bit of a chance that Purdue can get something done at Illinois. Now, I think Illinois will win this because Illinois they came off of a bad loss against bad Michigan State. Really sad loss for Illinois. They were doing great, but the streak had to end soon. But I think they are going to bounce back and beat Purdue, and they know Purdue's going to come at them hard. Purdue was a good team at the start of the season. They struggled with Iowa last week, and Illinois wants to come back to a good win. So I think they will win this one. Indiana at Ohio State. Nothing to be said here except Indiana is a shit show, and Ohio State needs to bounce back after that game against Northwestern. They need to show why they are the number 2 team in the country, and maybe even the number 1. Now, obviously, Georgia is not going to move from that spot as long as they stay undefeated, but Ohio State can damn well try and show that they are better. And they should be able to do that easily against Indiana at Ohio State. That should be a very easy game for Ohio State. Nothing to be said about it. If that game is even remotely close, I say they put Michigan ahead of Ohio State before that game. Missouri at Tennessee. I have Tennessee winning this one pretty big, but I do have Missouri putting some points on just because Tennessee's defense, to me, is their flaw, but their offense is where they're at. Number 2, I think I meant to put number 5 there. That's a little oopsie. Sorry. And, but Missouri's kind of turned around since they played that Auburn game. I saw them play that Auburn game, and I was like, oh, boy. This team could be very bad. They could be a very bad team indeed. Sorry for moving away from my mic. It's time for a little bit of a drink of water. But I think Tennessee should be able to handle business. It's also at Tennessee, so it's going to be a packed stadium. And, Tennessee should be able to clean up the schedule from here on out. And maybe even have a shot at the SEC championship, maybe. LSU at Arkansas. I know LSU came off of a massive victory against Alabama, but if I'm being real with y'all, Alabama has had so many close games this year. They had the 1-point victory over Texas, the 3-point loss against Tennessee, the 1-point loss against LSU. They had close games. They had a close game with Texas A&M. They've been playing close all year, and I think Arkansas is not getting any. They're not getting any attention. They were started off at like number 10. They took some losses, some bad losses, but this game's at Arkansas. LSU's going to be like, dude, we have the advantage. We have the advantage of going to the SEC championship right now, and we've got Arkansas. That's such an easy victory, and Arkansas is going to pull something. Now, if there's anything I know about Jaden Daniels, anything at all, is that he's a great quarterback. He's a fantastic quarterback, but from the way he played at ASU, he can be inconsistent as shit. He can beat number 6 Oregon, and then he can lose to Oregon State. That's just Jaden Daniels. Don't know if that was an ASU thing or a Jaden Daniels thing, but that's how I am determining this game. He can be inconsistent as shit, and due to it being at Arkansas, I think it's just going to be a really packed stadium, and I think LSU is going to take an L here. I think that the hype will end fairly quickly. I did not change the background for this one. Amazing. Oh, I wasn't able to find one, but Notre Dame at Navy. I have Navy winning this one strictly because Notre Dame has done this, and we've got to think in terms of Notre Dame here. Yes, they just beat Clemson. Yes, they look like they are starting to recover, but they've also lost to Marshall. They've also lost to Stanford. They've had really close games against multiple teams. I think they'll just go into this game and they will just lose to Navy. Because I don't know, it's just what Notre Dame's been doing this season. They win against good teams and lose against bad teams, or barely lose to good teams. Like, it's just Notre Dame, man. It's just the game we play. Vanderbilt at Kentucky. I'm going to have Kentucky win this one, but I'm going to have Vanderbilt put up some points, and these might be they might be off of turnovers or anything, but Vanderbilt has been playing teams pretty good for Vanderbilt. Like, if we're being real, this is the worst team in the SEC, and they have been for like a really long time. Vanderbilt has been terrible for a long time, but they dropped 28 points on Ole Miss. 28 points. Now, granted, that game was at Vanderbilt, but I doubt they have any fans there. They dropped 25 points on Wake Forest. Now, I think Wake Forest is a little overrated. They got killed by Alabama and by Georgia. Both of those games on the road, however. And they lost by 3 points at Missouri. They dropped 27 points on South Carolina. I think they'll put up some competition and make it a close game, maybe even kick Kentucky out of the top 25 for being such a close game, because they've been putting down some points and keeping games close. They've been doing it all year. And I think it might even be a recovering Vanderbilt. Maybe there is a little hope for them next season in the future. But I have Kentucky winning nonetheless. Nebraska at Michigan. Nebraska is the best 3-6 team they were last year. But this game will probably be like 17-24 at halftime, knowing Michigan, and then they'll just take off and win. That's just how Michigan is, and I think Michigan will handle this game with ease because Michigan is a very good team in the second half, and this would be great, a great victory. Well, not really, but yes, a great victory for them because any victory in a conference is a good victory. So I think Michigan will dominate. Alabama at Ole Miss. This is my first hot take. I think Ole Miss is going to take this one. This is a major rivalry. Like, a major rivalry. There has been history between Alabama and Ole Miss. And it always seems to be when these teams are both fighting for a good spot. But if I'm being real, Alabama's played many, many, many teams down to the wire this year. And I think with it being at Ole Miss, just like it was at LSU, I think that Ole Miss is going to be able to pull it off, whether it's a last-second field goal or whatnot. Alabama does this whole thing where they stay right with their opponent, and they either win or lose at the last second. And I think Ole Miss will be able to do it just because of this rivalry. And if Alabama dominates, then Alabama dominates. This is just a wild guess. I'm pretty sure nobody other than Ole Miss fans and duplicates of me, clones of me out there, will say that Ole Miss is winning this game. But I think Ole Miss has a nice shot at doing so. Louisville at Clemson. I know Clemson just lost and whatnot, but I think Louisville will be able to do this. Louisville looks like a recovering football team. I mean, they have that victory at UCF, which is looking better and better now. Louisville just killed Wake Forest. Yes, Wake Forest had 8 turnovers, but that's still a very fantastic victory. And Clemson is looking like they're falling to shreds. I mean, they just lost to Notre Dame, and they could bounce back. But we saw them in the Syracuse game have 4 turnovers, and in the Notre Dame, they had a bunch of turnovers. I just don't think this Clemson team is any good right now. I just think they are falling apart. I think Louisville is going to stick the dagger in them. Be like, Clemson should not have been in the top 5 at all. I knew they were overrated since day one, personally. I started making videos at like week 8 or week 9 for college football, so obviously you guys wouldn't know. But once I saw Clemson was in like the top 5, I was like, dude, they're not supposed to be up there. They've got to take a loss, otherwise that is just going to be a major disappointment if they get into the college football playoff and get annihilated. So I think Louisville's going to stick the dagger in them and end it all for Clemson. Maryland at Penn State. I like the Maryland hype right now, but playing at Penn State's such a hard game, especially if you're 6-3. There's going to be fans there. It's going to be a close game. This is only a 14-point difference. But yeah, I think Penn State's going to win. I don't think Penn State's a bad team at all. It just depends on whether they're at home or on the road. Being at home for Penn State is like almost always a guaranteed fixture. It's like an 80% chance that you win a game. They lost because they sold in turnovers and mistakes, like I said they would. And I think Maryland is a good team. They played Michigan down to the wire at Michigan, which looks very impressive now. But Penn State's just such a hard place to play at, and I think Penn State will take it. Oh, it looks like I didn't change the background on this one either. Boston College at NC State. I think NC State will handle this, but I think Boston College is going to put like 21 points on in like the first half, because that's what NC State seems to do. They always seem to be down and then like barely win it. I think this time it'll be like 21-28 at halftime. I think NC State will finally declare some law. I think NC State... Wait... Dude, I didn't even change the score. I mean, whatever, I agree with the score. I would have had it something like this, but I swear, why is my brain like this? All right, anyways, I think NC State will win. Maybe not by this score now that I know it's just the same one, but I think this score is actually pretty accurate because Boston College has played teams sort of well. And NC State has played bad teams down to the wire. So I think a 14-point difference would be good for NC State. But 42 would be nice for NC State. 28 points allowed, but 42 points. I think NC State needs this game for a little bounce back. They could climb back up in the rankings and prove me wrong. UCF at Tulane. This is like a big matchup. I don't think people realize this is a big one for the AAC. And to be frank, Tulane, if they win this, Tulane should climb. And if UCF wins, they should really climb because they beat one-loss Tulane. Like, this is actually going to be a fun game to watch, in my opinion. Hopefully they get a good announcer on it. Some good audio coverage. Maybe there's fans in the stadium. That makes it a good game. I think this game's going to go down to the wire. This might even be a last-second field goal, but I think it'll be a close one, and Tulane will take it. I think UCF is good, but it's at Tulane. Tulane's 8-1. They beat Kansas State. That's an impressive win. And, I think they're just going to be able to take it. And Georgia at Mississippi State. This is my massive hot take. I'm going to say Mississippi State's going to win this one. Mississippi State has played teams terribly, and they've played teams outstandingly. And I just think Georgia is a different team on the road. They've only had 4 games on the road, and this is going to be one of them. And I think Mississippi State might stun the world. Because really, we can look back at the Missouri game. They climbed out from the dead and barely won that game. And to be honest, Georgia's defense did not look like Georgia's defense versus Tennessee. Like, they looked so much worse. They looked like a 5-loss team. And I think Mississippi State's offense will be able to just do some early damage to Georgia. They'll climb back, but they will not be able to escape Mississippi State. And that's my really hot take. I just think Georgia is a different team on the road. Washington at Oregon. I think Oregon will handle this, but it'll be pretty close. Penix Jr. and the Washington offense, yeah, they might have lost to ASU, but I think Washington has a pretty solid offense and a somewhat good defense. But I think Oregon's offense and defense is better, especially this game being at Oregon. It's just, there's no chance that Washington upsets them. I just don't see it happening. Number 19, Kansas State at Baylor. I have Baylor winning this one because Kansas seems to upset, and I think Baylor just had a rough start to the season with that loss against BYU and some other bad losses like that one against Oklahoma State when Oklahoma State was good. I think Baylor will win this one and hopefully hop in the top 25 like they deserve. I think Baylor's a good football team. I just think they've taken a couple rough losses, and they'll beat Kansas State. This will be offensive and defensive. There'll be a lot of turnovers and a lot of touchdowns, but I think Baylor will be able to pull through. TCU at Texas. I love this TCU thing, but Texas is for real, dude. We got to remember one of their losses is a 1-point loss to Alabama. Now, one of their losses is a 3-point loss in overtime to Texas Tech at Texas Tech, and you got to know that's a major rivalry. That is a major rivalry, especially ranked Texas at the time. That's a very hard place to play at for Texas. So I don't really blame them for barely losing that game. Then who else did they? Oh, they lost to Oklahoma State at Oklahoma State. That game they just straight up sold, and that was against a good Oklahoma State team before their quarterback got knocked out. Oklahoma State is still a top 10 team if they have their quarterback, but they don't. So they're just going to keep losing, which sucks for Oklahoma State. It really, really does suck. And I think TCU at Texas, I just don't know if they can do it, man. I think Texas will lead the whole way. Just take the game by 8. UNC at Wake, another upset. I think Wake is 3 losses, but we got to remember they lost in overtime to Clemson. They lost to NC State at NC State. They got killed by Louisville at Louisville. They lost to like some of the best teams in their conference right now, and I think North Carolina is just going to get a taste of reality of what these 6-3 teams are really capable of, what Wake Forest can be like when they don't have a bunch of turnovers and make a bunch of mistakes. And I think they will be able to take it. UNC will play close, but not enough for the win. And that's just because I think Wake is a good team, and to be frank, they just really have messed up with the turnovers and really messed up their season. They could be undefeated in the top 10 right now. They could be 1 loss in the top 10 right now, but they just messed up. Florida State at Syracuse. I have Florida State winning this one at Syracuse. Syracuse is falling apart, and Florida State, after that massive victory against Miami, Florida State might be bouncing back. We saw Florida State take a couple bad losses, but we've seen Syracuse take worse losses. To me, I think Syracuse is just a bad team overall. And if Florida State's defense can shut Syracuse down, they'll be able to take this game by storm. Stanford at Utah. I think Utah will kill them. I think this is a pretty easy game. I mean, at Utah, Stanford has an all-right offense, but they don't have a good defense. Cameron Rising in Utah, they're just going to keep going up, 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 up. They will win that. Arizona at UCLA, our final game. I think UCLA is going to have a struggle with U of A, man. They had a struggle with ASU last week, but at least this U of A team will be able to have a spy, or at least be able to be ready for the rush in this game. Their offense is good. Their defense isn't that good. That's where UCLA's points are going to come from. But U of A, man, their offense is something right now. And that is it for my Week 10 review. I believe it is Week 10. Let's scroll to the top. It's going to take way too long. A lot of upsets this week I have. A lot of hot takes I have this week. And, Week 11. Damn it. Week 11 predictions. That's it for me. Adios.